Hello, hello, welcome everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today for our monthly .NET MAUI Community Toolkit stand-up. And today is an extra special day because as we already can see from the comments rolling in that .NET MAUI is a thing now. .NET MAUI is officially GA'd, which means the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit has officially GA'd alongside it. So today we got to celebrate. And Sean, it looks like you've come prepared.
I have.
How you feeling?
I'm great. I've got cake, beer.
Ah, you got cake. I'm so jealous.
Yes, no, it's great, isn't it? It is really nice to be able to get something out.
Yeah, this is something we've been, gosh, it's probably been about a year now that we've been working on it. I know internally I started working on this back in March, but yeah, Pedro, how are you feeling?
Super excited about this new framework and all the things that you can build with it, since it is a rework of the Xamarin Forms and using the multi-target architecture. That is something that I just love.
Me too, me too. And Vlad?
Yeah, hello. It's amazing feeling that we probably wait more than a year, and finally the .NET MAUI released, and the .NET MAUI community released, community MAUI released, markup. So it's amazing feeling.
Oh man, yes, couldn't agree more. Unfortunately, our host with the most, Gerald, isn't able to join us today, but he sends his regards and also is obviously very excited about the release. Gerald, we miss you. We'll see you next month. But yeah, this is this is a big deal, and yeah, I've been waiting for a long time for us to be able to share this right here. Just the first GA, the first release. The Xamarin Community Toolkit was and still is something that's used by or used in thousands of apps that we know of, thousands of open source apps, I should say. So likely dozens more than that, and then also, or dozen times more than that. But also, it's a library that's essentially one of the best known Xamarin developer libraries for Xamarin Forms, and I can't wait to see .NET MAUI Community Toolkit take off and have the same impact, because we know there are hundreds of thousands of devs out there that are getting ready to port their apps from Xamarin Forms to .NET MAUI, and it feels so amazing to be a part of that process and being able to contribute from, well, the four of us here, the five, including Gerald and even Javier back at the start of the project. Shout out to Javier and Andre. Andre was around the beginning. So much amazing work from everybody. So thank you. If you haven't had a chance to try it out and let us know. We're getting some good feedback now, rolling in with folks either opening up discussions about new features or issues with trying to use it. And, understanding this whole .NET MAUI thing is a little confusing. I totally get it. Like, .NET MAUI is a workload. Xamarin Forms was a NuGet package, but workloads live on NuGet. So it's a little strange, but today is a day for celebration, but it's also the time where we get to look ahead. This is the first stand-up we've had that we're going to talk about vNext. And so let's bring that screen back up. Boop. So what we've done, let's see. How do I get to milestones? I always forget how to get there, and I end up going like this. So, folks in the community, come check this out. We have a couple milestones, or a couple proposals that we've added to our v1.1 milestone. So this is mostly what we're going to be chatting about today. How we're going to prioritize the next features, the next versions. But this is the community toolkit. So let us know what you think. If you have thoughts, if you have comments, heck, if there's a feature you want to work on. For example, let's see, none of these say help wanted, but if we go back to all of the issues here, if you look, whoops, how do we do this? Oh, label. There we go. We have a help wanted tag. And this is the best place to come and see what you can help out with. So we have all these features like tab view, state layout, semantic order view. Media elements blocked right now, but that's also a really good one that we'll get to when we can. But yeah, everybody out there, please, please, please check out these help wanted ones. If there's a PR that you want to implement and you want to get it into V1.1 and we haven't chatted about it today, let us know. We're happy to help you along in the process. Whew. Okay. So all that being said, the first item on our agenda today is exactly that. It's a new proposal made by one of our amazing community members, Carol Zambon. But Pedro, I know you've been working closely with Carol and guiding her through this. So why don't we start with, fill us in. What is this proposal and what's the feature we'll be adding to the toolkit?
Sure. So Carol is also on the chat. So Carol, feel free also to correct me if I say something wrong or forgot something. Just put on the chat. I know there is a little delay, but we can catch up. So this proposal is more like an easy way to use markup extensions to define which size each control or layout, or like the grid row or something like that, should have based on the screen category. So like for mobile devices and medium devices, larger devices, extra larger device. So you can have just one layout, and using the markup extension, you can say, okay, on, for example, imagine a box view, and you say, okay, if I'm running an extra large monitor or extra large device, I want that box view to have 500 hike request. But if I am in the medium device, I wanted it to be 100 hike requests. So, it's the easiest way to make, I would say, pixel perfect applications for don't matter the size of the screen. And it's pretty straightforward in the point of view of the usage, that you just have to use that markup extension on the screen size, and you can define like the nums, the properties, like is the medium, large, or extra large, or default size that will be applied if you don't specify the size for one category. And as far as I know, that can be used in any control on the Xamarin Form. So, it's a very easy way to make it pixel perfect. And we are discussing now the terms of the implementation of that, because this is already on the wild. There is a NuGet package shipped by Carol on that, and she has been using this since forever, and she said that it's working great. So yeah, it's already proved in production. So it's a one more point to approve this feature. But she uses a cache system, like where she put a model phone and the screen size of that phone. So there is a dictionary, a huge dictionary, and I mentioned, okay, this is not very good in the terms of maintenance, because every time that we release, some company release a new device, we need to update that cache area to make sure which size that device is. So we are talking on how to change that. On Android, we found a API that tells us if the device is large, is medium, is a small device, and you are looking for iOS. We also trying to think in a way to do some math, using the height and the width of the device, and do some calculation there to make sure if we are on a large or small device. But this is the only part that is blocking, I would say, this proposal to be merged right now. But like, this is a small thing. Everything else is just great.
Thanks. Yeah, I like this because I've had to do this manually, and I imagine most developers who have an app in the App Store have had to also do this manually. And I see the immediate value for it. And if I'm being honest, I think this is an amazing candidate to add to the official .NET MAUI SDK, because there is already some existing precedent there. So I'm loving it. So Pedro, you mentioned it's we're kind of ironing out the API surface still, and typically the next step in the process would be we would vote to approve the implementation as proposed. Is it ready for a vote yet, or would you like to circle back? We could work on it. We could chat about it the next meetup or the next stand up. We could always do a virtual vote if there's some work coming in this week or the next week. But yeah, what do you think for moving forward with it?
Well, honestly, I think that is a good idea because with that in mind, that we try to not use hard-coded values to map all devices and the sizes of those devices because it's a ton of work. Of course, the most majority she's already done because she uses that, but having us to adding every time that Apple or Samsung or Huawei or whatever manufacturer releases a new device, we need to go there and add something that will not be too great. So besides that, I think this is good to vote, because I am pretty sure that we will solve this issue, do it in so using some platform API or using some calculation to perform that, because I believe that we are not the first ones that trying to know if you are running a large device or a small device. So
Love it.
we
And
will
actually,
find something.
yeah, and I'm so glad you brought this up because if I'm being honest, I haven't looked at the code for this one yet because you've been all over it, and Sean as well. So didn't need a third cook in the kitchen. But now that you mention it, I could share some of the code that I have because yeah, what I would do. Well, this was a Xamarin Forms app, so I was using Xamarin Essentials. But yeah, the Xamarin Essentials device size, I forget the exact enum or class name. But yeah, would do that and divide that by the pixel density to figure out how many points, not just how many pixels are going across the width. And then, yeah, I remember I grabbed a couple sample devices like what's an iPhone 4's pixel density width and what's a Samsung Galaxy A3's pixel density width to try and find that point where it's like, okay, this one's small, this one's large. So I'll take the action item. I'll put a link to that here. Hopefully that'll help. But
That will be amazing. Thank you.
I do have a question on the decision as to what's small, medium, large. Are we going to say we're going to ship maybe defaults that we determine are small, medium, and large, and they could be overridden, or are we just going to say we're going to say they are prescribed values? Because I know in some apps that I've had to tweak, it's not necessarily been as distinct as that's a small screen, that's a large screen. Sometimes there's
good
probably
point.
reuse, like, if you're familiar with Bootstrap framework for web development, you know that it's like a grid with 12 rows and columns, and it define what is medium size, like it's called breakpoint, where it has extra small size and automatically resize it based on I think it's constant value. If device width greater than some value, it's automatically resized to that breakpoint. So probably we can also reuse it and define if medium size is, for example, 1,000 points pixels, and extra large is some other value.
Yeah.
They can be overridden.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. It should be overridable because I've worked with developers before where their company only made the app for tablets. So small to them, like small to me is like an iPhone 4. Small to them would be like, I don't know, whatever a small tablet is. So yeah, that's actually a really good point. We should probably, or definitely, allow it to be overridable, but I also love the idea of including defaults so that folks don't have to guess. And it would also lower the overhead for folks trying to use the control if they didn't have to define defaults.
Oh, also, Brandon, if you can scroll down a little bit, there
Sure.
is one thing also that I want to point out, that this this feature will not be real time responsive. Like okay, a little bit more.
Still scrolling? Okay.
Yeah, there, on the screenshot on the Android phone. So if you can see, I have two applications on a Motorola one opening at the same time. So they like, it's some feature that you have on Android. So if you use this markup extension to screen size and resize the application window, uh, we will not be responsible of that. We are responsible for the screen sizes, the device sizes, not the application sizes. So just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Oh, that's a great point. Should we
Because
also rename it? Like on device size?
makes sense also. Because yeah, that could lead some confusion, right? Like the person will expect to, because right now that WhatsApp screen should be a small device, because it's half of the screen. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great point. So, yeah, I would say either, well, if we can implement that, that'd be awesome. And then obviously we could keep on screen size. But if that would be too much for like version one of this, then we could go forward with the implementation we have now, and then maybe build onto it for a future release. But great point. Great point. I didn't even think about that.
How is
Okay.
it will be different? How it will be different from on platform, probably, where we mostly know if it's tablet, phone, desktop, where we most likely know the size of the screen, probably not screen, but probably it should be. It would be nice if it would be on application size,
Mm,
because, especially on desktop, where you, as you mentioned, when you resize the window,
That's
you
a
will
good
get,
point.
yeah.
yeah, I talked about that with Carol, and she mentioned that for desktop we should always consider like extra large, because hardly you like compared it to mobile devices, desktops and notebooks will have a huge monitor compared to them. But yeah.
Ooh. Well, now I'm leaning towards we should have it dynamically update. I don't know anymore. Ah! But yeah, there's some good chat in the comments about having the split screen, like you were just talking about, Pedro, and making sure we account for that. Um, and actually, she mentioned that it is the Xamarin version that she made is actually already overridable. So awesome.
And the last point about when you rotate the device, what will be width and what is the size of it? It will be changed, and how in that case we understand what is width, what is height, and what is the size in that case. Is it a wide screen or it's like rotated
Hmm.
screen?
Yeah, good point, Carol. I don't have the answer, but if you have, please throw it in the chat.
A
So,
question that has cropped up in the chat
Mhm.
relating to this is from George asking whether, oh, I've got to scroll up, it's got disappeared. Whether the on-screen size markup could be used to show and hide different things on the screen. So, as an example, could you hide flyout on small screens and only display the burger, or on a large screen have the flyout displayed? I think flyout should manage some of that for us, shouldn't it?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I was just gonna
no,
say it's
it's.
simpler
Oh, sorry, go
example.
ahead.
If it, let's just say it's a label, because shell will get a little complicated. But yeah, if we wanted to show or hide a label based on that, then it it seems feasible to have the labels is visible binding tied to this, and in this case it'd just be a one-time binding to check it, and if it's small then true, if it's false then false, or something like that. What were you thinking, Pedro?
Yeah, I would say that yes, that you can hide also using this visible property, but you can also do like height and width of 0. Then that will not be should not be presented. No, 0 should be collapsed. So yeah.
Right on. Well, Pedro, what's your recommendation for moving forward? It sounds like, well, you want to be the champion for this
Mhm.
feature. All right, awesome. So, yeah, do you think we should wait a bit and chat about some of the stuff that we've mentioned here, or would you like to push forward for the approval vote now?
Mm, I also extended this question to Carol since she's here. Let's bring some community members to see what she thinks as well. Like to me, it's a pretty solid uh, API feature. Like is in production right now on the Xamarin World, and it's working just fine. Here we just need to finish to define some tweaks in the API on how we will handle the screen size changes or the API changes, and there are all this kind of new stuffs on the MAUI side, because MAUI now we have a concept of a window, so you can have a multi-window applications, and how that will be handled and stuff like that. Also not sure, but I believe that Sean also was talking on this issue about some C# API. Not sure if he has some concerns on that, on move that forward.
No, I was just trying to be a little pedantic and ask if we could strive for type safety. But that was actually misunderstanding actually what was available in the, I think in the toolkit anyway, not in the toolkit, in the framework of MAUI. I think in terms of what Carol was suggesting, I think it looks fine.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, to me, we should have this on the package. So to me, is like a win vote, but I am liking the edge because I don't in the fence because I don't know if we are ready to commit some work on that, or would be good to do a POC and try some stuffs before do the final vote. So yeah, I am either okay with voting right now or postponing this to the next stand up.
All right. Well, that's all right, because this will actually tie in nicely to the next topic where we focus on 1.1. What if we chat about the 1.1 release real quick and see just what's going to be our timeline, what and how many features we're going to add to it, and also how we're going to do it, and maybe we can circle back to this. And yeah, if nothing else, we can always include it in the next stand-up.
Sure, sounds great to me.
Right on. I'm taking some notes in the issue off camera screen, just to let folks know that we did discuss it in the June stand-up, and adding in like Android split screen or like Windows desktop window resizing stuff, how we handle that. But awesome. Well, thank you, Pedro, so much for championing this new feature. I think I've already gushed enough about how great of an idea I think this is. So let's bring up our 1.1 milestone. Da, 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 da. Well, apologies to everybody. I'm a little slower today because usually Gerald's hosting and I'm running things behind the scenes, but we got it all today. So let's... Oh, it hides the closed one. So, right, so we have this 1.1 milestone coming up. But I think first we should chat about how basically we're going to do releases going forward. So let's bring us all back to center here, because now, previously, before MAUI was GA'd, we didn't really have to worry about breaking changes or version numbers. Like the next version was always going to be preview dash 7, preview dash 8, and everything was in preview, so we could break whatever we wanted. Now we can't do that anymore. So what I'm thinking for our workflow is right now everything goes into the main branch. You know, we don't have necessarily a develop branch. We just have essentially feature branches, which I think is fine. But when we talk about, you know, what the next version is going to be, well, we merged in Pedro's PR just recently. Whoops. Come back. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen. Gerald, come back. There we go. So, yeah, we recently merged in a new feature, which is great. Excited to get the select all text behavior in there. Thank you, Pedro. But this kind of means the next version we release will have to be 1.1 because we added a new feature, new API. So here's what I'm thinking. Tell me if I'm crazy. That every new release we push out kind of just depends on the work we've accomplished so far. So, for example, if we had only merged bug fix PRs, and there definitely have been a couple bug fixes, so shout out to everybody who's helped us out. But let's say we haven't merged any new features to the main branch, then the next release can be a point release. So that would be 1.0.1. But now that we have brought in a new feature, I think the best way, or at least the easiest way, selfishly, for me as a maintainer, to go forward with this would be to push out the next version as version 1.1.0 pre-1 in this case. And that'll be where, you know, the bug fixes are included, and we'll continue adding new features to 1.1 just going forward. So I guess what I'm trying to say is we either have a develop branch where we can put the new features in, and the main branch where we could add in the bug fixes, kind of like we did with Xamarin Community Toolkit, or we keep everything simplified, everything goes in the main branch, and whatever's in there kind of dictates the release. So if there's been a new feature added, then we bump up, and the next release, bump up the release number, and the next number is a pre-release of the next version. And if there's not a new feature in the main branch, then we can add that or release that as a point release, so like a 1.0.1. Does any of that make sense?
It does. I question, do we need the pre suffix?
Oh, good question. So my thoughts behind why we do it as a pre is if we have a version 1.1 milestone, then 1.1 will be complete once we have everything in the milestone done, but we can release our work along the way. So like people can use select all behavior if we released v1.1.0 pre-1 today. And then as we bring in maybe Carol's new feature with the screen size markup, as we bring in the other new features, we can push out pre-2, pre-3. But at the same time, the downside to that is the bug fixes that folks might need will be in the pre-releases. And I know some shops avoid pre-releases. So it would essentially delay the bug fix from getting to the end developer is my concern. But I'm also not sure.
That sounded a bit of a grey area as to if we shipped a bug fix, then we happen to ship a feature, what would happen then if another bug fix came in? We'd
Right.
go through a pre, is what we're saying, rather than...
So yeah, if we keep
stopping
everything just
increment.
in the main branch, then yeah, the bug fix would just be added in the next pre-release or the current pre-release, or however you want to think about it. But what do you guys think?
From my point of view, we don't need pre-suffix just because if we match something to main, even it's a feature or bug, it doesn't matter. We assume that it's fixed, it works as expected. If we have a bug, we just increase the, like, if it's a feature, we increase the minor version. If it's a bug fix, we only update the build version, whatever we want. So I think we will have version 1.2, 1.3 with each new feature, but with bug fix, we will update only 1.2.1, 1.2.2. So in that case, we don't need a press suffix, and most likely people will use the latest version.
Yeah,
we
actually,
may have the pre suffix when we updated .NET MAUI 7, because it may be a breaking change. But before that, I think we do not need the pre suffix.
you bring up a great point, Vlad. And maybe I've just overthought this because we could push out version 1.1.0 today with no pre-release tag on it. That way everybody would get select all behavior, everybody would get the bug fixes, and then we can keep working on if let's see, how do I bring my screen back up? Boom. And so we could, what's a better way to put it? I think maybe I've convoluted this by trying to plan and make a 1.1 milestone, because maybe we just shift these to the 1.2 milestone, or maybe we just rename this like a V next milestone. And these are what we're working on, instead of necessarily being super rigid about, okay, we're going to add these next 5 features into the next version, and we're not going to release the stable version of that until they're all in there. So
yeah, we might be
Yeah.
we might be leaning more towards, I guess, what the actual definition of things like GitHub flow is that main should always be releasable, and every time you're making a specific change, you're dealing with versions. So if you're adding a feature, it's a minor. If you're adding a bug, it's a patch increment. But I don't know, because it does look like we're running through versions then, doesn't it? It's the fact that we're saying, well, we get 5 features and we've bumped up 5 minor versions.
yeah,
But that might mean
that would be
we'll
the
ship
downside.
quickly.
It'd be like how Chrome's on version like 98 now, or they're probably in the hundreds. But yeah, maybe that is the way to go about it. We'll probably have some crazy version numbers like 1.20, or maybe not that high, but yeah. Okay, I've convoluted things.
Actually, why not?
I'm glad you guys are here to.
I have a question. Like, this is the happy path, but we can have also the not so happy path, like the summary form sometimes has. That is the need to revert some PR because, like we do a PR, we merge it, and looks like that works. But when we ship that actually breaks more than the fix that bugs. Then we needed to revert that PR, and how we, not sure if it will be easy to remove things if you follow this path.
Yeah, like what if we have to revert something? Gosh, well, I know in NuGet you can deprecate NuGet packages now. That's a fairly new feature. So if we release a 2.0 and it had a nasty bug that we needed to revert PR for, we can go into NuGet. You can deprecate it, and then anytime somebody uses that package, NuGet gives them a warning to say, hey, just so you know, this package has been deprecated, and here's a comment from the developers explaining why. So I think that's possible.
I guess a question might be is, what are we planning to do release cycle wise? Are we planning to release after every feature merge, every bug merge, or are we going to release once a month or once every defined period? Because if we're doing once every defined period, then actually you only do want to bump the version up like you've suggested in your.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards more of the continuous release, where it's funny because Gerald does all our releases for us, and he's not here to defend himself. But if Gerald's cool with it, yeah, I don't see why we couldn't push out a new release after, say, we merge a new feature, or after we merge a bug fix or two, and just keep incrementing the version number. And yeah, and then we wouldn't need a pre-release unless, yeah, like maybe if version 2.0 we have some crazy breaking changes and we redo everything, like that should probably have a pre-release in there. But yeah, maybe we just, every time we have a new feature that's been added to the main branch, we bump up the minor version number or major version number, depending. And for like, how many bug fixes do we need to have before we release a new version of the bug fix? Maybe that's more of a question of like, if we have bug fixes once a month, we can push out a new release, or once every Gerald. I was about to say once every 2 weeks. I don't know how much time Gerald spends on the releases, so I don't want to burden him. But yeah, maybe we set up we'll have at least one version every blank. So let's for right now just say every month, once we get Gerald looped in and he can give us some feedback. But yeah, I'd say, what if we release a version every month that'll contain all the bug fixes that's been added in the past month, assuming there have been. And if that version also contains a new feature, then we'll bump up the minor version number and then just call it a day.
Makes sense to me. Also, George said that we keep standard Microsoft release practice. Maybe he's talking about the idea of having like the same cadence releases as the .NET MAUI itself, that I believe that will be monthly.
That's a whole nother good question. Oh gosh, we only have 20 minutes left. George, I love it. Let's circle back to that for the next stand-up, because yeah, one of the things I'm worried about is, yeah, what if .NET MAUI pushes out a new release and then we have to bump up our dependency on .NET MAUI to support that? But I really want to get to the other items on the agenda. So let's keep that in the back of their minds, because yeah, one of the things we've been doing in the pre-release is every time there was a new .NET MAUI pre-release, we rebuilt our library on top of that as our new dependency. But going forward, if we continue doing that, then we lose that backwards compatibility. So all really good questions, but I think we've at least sorted out how to handle versioning and releases going forward, and it was mostly my fault for overcomplicating it. I'll change this milestone to something like vNext, and then we can just say like, these are the proposals that are queued up, and as we merge them in, we'll release the new versions, and I think everything will be good. All right, let's pivot to not Pedro, although you look great. There we go. Animation behavior. Sean, tell us about animation behavior and what the plans are or your plans are for implementing this. And
yeah, so actually, I'm kind of at a loss of working out what I should do, really. Where can I add the most value? This is something that's actually been, the behavior itself's been added, but there's no pre-built animations that go with it. So I thought I could spend some time finishing that off to get that complete, and I think we need docs for that.
And what is a pre-built animation?
So these ones would be, I think if you scroll down, I think they're already defined. These are just like this, the scale to, using the scale to, rotate to. Maybe it's higher up. There you go.
Here we go. Yep.
In the summary. The
Okay,
rotation,
cool. So
scale, and shaking.
Stuff that's not baked into .NET MAUI, but things that are commonly used. Like I've made apps that use a shake animation, a scale animation, but I had to do that myself. So
yeah, I mean, scale and rotate are there. Flip you can technically do, but it's not straightforward. And I think the key part here is you can trigger them from XAML, which is the difference from what you can achieve within MAUI itself. So I think Stefan actually added the behavior itself, but like I say, we just don't ship any pre-built ones yet. So just wanted to finish that part off.
Sounds good. What's everybody's thoughts? I know this is something, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, you did a lot of work on this for the Xamarin Community Toolkit. Is that right?
Not this one. Well, yes, I provided more complex animations inside of it, so you can actually define more complex animations. So I think some of them is growing and shaking, and there's a rubber band effect, things like that you can actually utilize.
Cool. Pedro, Vlad, what are your thoughts on moving forward with pre-built animations, animation behavior?
Totally.
Is that a thumbs up from Vlad? All right. Sounds good. Yeah, Sean, I guess just let us know what you think. Maybe one possible path forward. Because if I remember correctly, I think animation behavior is already in the toolkit.
It is. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe we break this out into multiple proposals, and it'll just help keep everything bite-sized, allow you to keep track of things instead of kind of having a big mega proposal.
Yeah, that's fine. I've got a bit of investigation work to do as well, because I think we inherit from the event command behavior, but we deliberately don't let you use some of the functionality. So I'm going to remove that, or let you use it. I don't know which one's the right answer yet.
Yeah, or maybe there's even a more condensed base class that event behavior can inherit from, and animation behavior can also inherit from. If they need to share code, I don't know too much about.
We'll find out as we go.
Right on. All right. So 13 minutes left. Goodness. State layout. Pedro, looks like you're the champion for state layout. What's the plan for this and vNext?
Well, if someone on the community wants to bring this to the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, will be really appreciated, because right now I am coding. My goal is to bring all the effects from the Xamarin Community Toolkit to the next version of our community, or of the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. So I will not code this one right now. So if anyone on the community really needs this, please let me know. Put your say hi on the issue, asking for take this one, and I will help you to code this, to migrate this. And also on this issue, there is some discussion going on, like a workaround that where you can use, I think, content templates to implement some kind of state layout on your application. So don't be blocked by that. You can use content templates for this today.
Cool. Is that this right here with control template key equals alert? Okay. Very cool.
Yes.
Good to know it's not a blocker too. That's I've also heard gotten feedback from folks in the community that this is one that they're missing from the Xamarin Community Toolkit. I will say also important to call out, at the top of the show we were celebrating releasing the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit. But really, we released 4 new libraries. The .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, the .NET MAUI Core Community Toolkit, and the .NET MAUI Markup Community Toolkit, and Xamarin Community Toolkit MAUI Compat. There we go. So one recommendation we could have is folks can leverage Xamarin Community Toolkit MAUI Compat for this until we get it in the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit, because the whole point of Xamarin Community Toolkit MAUI Compat was it's the same exact code from Xamarin Community Toolkit, but we've just replaced Xamarin Forms with the .NET MAUI namespaces. So there are some things that get a little wonky in there because it's still using custom renderers, but should help folks leverage state layout if they need it. All right, let's bring this back.
So
And
actually, just a quick point. State layout was
oh,
actually
sorry.
one of the other things that I was considering looking at in terms of whether it was
Ooh.
animation behavior or state layout. I know it's in Pedro's name, but I know he's ridiculously busy as well. So I don't mind offering my name to it if no one else is going to take it.
Right on. Well, thank you, Sean. Don't burn yourself out, man. All right. Localization. So Vlad, I know you want to talk about localization. I've heard there's some new libraries floating around the community. Fill us in. What's going on with localization in .NET MAUI?
Yeah, this feature was proposed by Maxim, and he asked me to bring this to this stand-up, and it was previously closed because it depends on observable object. For now, I investigated it that we can use I notification. I notification changed, and yeah, why this feature is important. So let's see. I prepared a small demo. Let's zoom it a bit. So first of all, how to localize the .NET MAUI application. As usual, we have
Can you
upper
increase the font
sources
size just
file.
a little bit, Vlad?
Yeah.
A little bit more. Let's do 2 more bumps.
Mhm.
That doesn't sound right. Thank you.
Okay. So we have, as usual, we have upper sources with different text with different localization there, and we just said that what value we want to see in our localized text. So how it looks like. So here we have some text which we bind, and it's automatically loaded from upper source. What happens? So how it works? When we start application, it get current culture and load the specific resource, specific text from resource. So when you dynamically change language in your application or change language in operation system, it will not update it until you restart your application. And it may work for some scenarios, but for example, if you need a feature like change language in application, you need to add additional code. As you can see, this static content didn't change while this to text is updated. So there are two possible. We splitted this feature on two different. One is localization resource manager, and the second one is translate extension. So the first one is localization resource manager. It's probably almost the same as we have in Xamarin Community Toolkit. The only difference that we return, I updated here to return object because we can get not only text from resources, but also in this case, image. And this feature, as you can see, automatically update our localization resource in the cons of this implementation, and that we need additional property of our resource manager, so we can bind to it, and it will only that automatically update. So we get resource name like based on the index from localization resource manager. It's the first feature about localization resource manager. If we can go further with translate extension, it's just a simple markup extension, which just returns our binding, and we can use our converters, we can use some other formatters, path, whatever we want. And in that case, we do not need this property in our code behind the view model where we bind it. And we can use markup extension, which automatically which hides this property inside of it and just load So you do not need to depends on specific class which stores our resources. So this is a proposal, and why it's actually requested for applications where we actually need to update dynamically resources without changing our operation system localization. We do so if we need some specific culture for specific application, we can do it easily without restarting our or changing our resources, our localization in our system, just by setting it in the specific application.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Awesome to know that we don't need observable object because yeah, that was the blocker, and the recommendation for folks to go check out the proposal was that since it needed observable object, it should live in the MVVM toolkit. So that was actually my next question to you, Vlad. Was is there .NET MAUI specific things to this, or should we see about adding it to the MVVM toolkit so that every .NET developer can use it, regardless of MAUI or?
Well, actually, identify property changed, which actually used by MVVM toolkit. Observable object inherited from identify property changed. So it's lives in system component model. So it can be used in any community toolkit, in .NET MAUI Community Toolkit or in MVVM Community Toolkit. But in this case, we use Localization Resource Manager. Probably, I don't know where it should live. For me, it can live it's not specific for MVVM, but probably it's more closer to the .NET MAUI because it's a part of application. So in that case, we can keep it in Community Toolkit MAUI.
The translate extension is MAUI specific, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, translate
Because of
extension.
the binding. Yeah. I would say that the community.toolkit.mvvm is not like just for MVVM because it's not wrong. Sergio made that because they want to a community to kit to be used across .NET. So like you have the high performance part of the community kit that where you have some collections that are very very performant. So even applications that does not use MVVM can use the community toolkit.mvvm. I believe that is not called .mvvm, it's another name because another CS project. You need to check that out. But
Yeah.
yeah, and resources file is not specific for MAUI or Xamarin. You know, you can use across .NET applications. So that could be good enough to be on this one, on the communitytoolkit.com. But I also have a question. Not sure if you saw on the Twitter or Discord channel that someone made a source generator for generate resources, like that resources from their hex files. So just want to point out if this implementation is tied to the MES build task, or if you can, or if even if I use another source generator, that will also work because probably that could break someone that wants to use a source generator instead of the default MS build task.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, so yeah, we can return here whatever we want. We can probably it can be somehow injected here through dependency injection, maybe where we register somewhere in DI this resource manager, and it can be updated, and here in somewhere here.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
sounds good.
So maybe just thinking ahead to some next steps. Let's see. Let me bring this up on the screen again. because yeah, I was digging through and I found that the MVVM toolkit actually has communitytoolkit.com in as one of its dependencies. So is communitytoolkit.com in the best place to put this? It sounds like we do need, like if we do need a .NET MAUI specific API, then obviously .NET MAUI Toolkit all the way. But yeah, if we can make this agnostic and to the UI framework, and we can allow WPF and WinForms devs to also leverage this, I think that'd be cool too. But so yeah, let's figure out if it's a better candidate for communitytoolkit.common versus communitytoolkit.maui. And then after that, I think, Vlad, the question to you is, should we reopen this proposal? Should we open a new proposal? What do you think?
Yeah, first of all, I would say that from my point of view, they should go into one package because like localization, resource manager, and translate extension probably related. And because translate extension depends on MAUI, probably this localization resource manager should also go to this package. And as for your second question, remind me. I forgot it.
Oh, just because we have the existing proposal where we said we're not going to do it.
Yeah, got it.
And it's closed.
We can reopen it. Yeah, we can reopen it. We can update it. Make sure that it covers all our later, because there was actually some discussion about it. Probably we can make sure at some points why we reopen it, or so we can don't lost our discussion with him.
Sounds good.
I like keeping the history and working out why we came to the decision. That makes sense.
Sounds good. So I'll go ahead and reopen. I'll leave a comment on that. Again, just letting folks who find it later know we chatted about it here in this month's stand-up, so they can catch up. And yeah, we'll reopen it. And Vlad, you want to champion this one?
Even this too. I mean, localization, resource management, translate extension. They're different. Or am I missing?
I'm looking at localization resource manager right now.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, we can start from it and see what will go next. I see some comment from George about community toolkit resources. I don't think we want to have a fifth package.
Oh, a new NuGet package.
Just for this pretty small feature.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although if it encompassed the source generation stuff as well, it all played nicely.
Ooh, that'd be cool. I mean, I kind of think this is something we can do the easy way first. So without source generators, well, unless you think source generators are easier, we could do it the easy way, and then in a future release, we get some performance improvements with source generators. But I think this sounds good. We are at the top of the hour, which flew by. I thought we didn't have enough stuff to talk about today, but I'm glad we got settled what we had settled. I know there's an open PR, Vlad, that you mentioned here with, there it is, for Badgeview.
As for this PR, I just saw that it used base template view, which depends on which actually used by a lot of other controls which we have in Xamarin Community Toolkit. So probably this pair should go first with it. Or actually, what is the benefit of this base template view? I see it doesn't have a lot of code. Probably is it suits to the NET MAUI new texture or something like that, or we should go as we had, for example, for drawing view or pop-up. We had a specific different design for it.
Good question. I don't know. Do you guys know? Do we need a base templated view, or because we could always break out base templated view into its own PR, merge that in while this PR is getting finished. But thoughts, Sean, Pedro?
I'm trying to think, would things like the state layout benefit from being able to be templated? I'm not sure. I'd have to do some research to give a good answer on that. I can't give you a yes or a no right now.
Yeah, me
Putting you on
too.
the spot. All right, no worries. We can circle back to that, and even
I'll
some
make a
things
note
like,
to look at it though.
Yeah, like we could probably even remove nullable here since we're new in the constructor. But yeah, good question. I'm glad you pointed that out, Vlad. Okay, well, we are 5 minutes longer than we're supposed to be on the .NET Foundation channel. So thank you, everybody, so much for joining us today. Let us know if you have any questions. Jump into the .NET MAUI Community Toolkit repo. Look for those ones marked Help Wanted with the Help Wanted label. See which ones you want to implement. Comment on it. We're happy to help you guide through the process. And Sean, Pedro, Vlad, and Gerald out in the virtual world, thanks so much for everything. I can't believe we just got to version 1. It's a real product now, and we did it. We've got a library that's going to be used by thousands of developers. Woo! Super, super excited. So thanks, everybody, once again, and we'll see you next month for the July Community Toolkit Stand-Up.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm a mess. I hit the wrong button. Now we'll see you next month.